Band Aid and Live Aid is obviously very, very famous around the world. Let's say it's maybe less well known in Mexico. For a Mexican audience, maybe somebody in a village, in Oaxaca or something, what is Band Aid and Live Aid, and what's a benefit concert, and how did it all get started?
Well, it's quite simple. Back in 1984, I was performing on a TV show, which was a music show, which was hosted by Bob Geldof's girlfriend at the time. And Bob called Paula, and I happened to be standing next to Paula. This is how organised this was. And he spoke to me and said that I've just seen the Michael Burke BBC footage, the first piece of footage that the Western world had seen about the famine in Ethiopia, which was still a communist country at the time. And he said, I want to do something. There are people dying right now, and it's obscene. So we got together and we decided that the most efficient way to generate income immediately was to make a Christmas record. This was in like October or something. So we thought, if we make a Christmas record, the charts in the UK freeze the week before Christmas, the week of Christmas, the week of New Year, right into January. So you can sell a substantial amount of records over that period, much more than you would having a number one any other time. Right. So, and also we had to write something. We couldn't just do our version of a standard Christmas song, because 50% of the income from a record goes to the songwriters. Right. So we had to write something and then donate the songwriting royalties. So we figured that, no matter what we wrote, it probably wouldn't be very good. So in order to make it successful, we thought we'd just pull all our contemporaries and all our friends. So we got the biggest names in the UK music industry at the time to come along and help us make this record. Now, the record itself stood to make, we estimated, about £100,000. But once the media got hold of what we were actually doing, all the other percentages that would normally come off the income of a record, to the label, to the manufacturers, to the retailers, all of those percentages were put back into Band Aid. Yeah. So we had 100% of the record. Yeah. So instead of generating £100,000, it generated £7 million. Wow. So we set up the Band Aid Trust, and 3 months into spending this money on immediate aid, because people were dying there and then, so we wanted to send immediate aid. 3 months into the project, the famine was starting to wane and things were getting a little bit better. So we started looking towards long-term development. And part of the problem that we had was all the agencies, Médecins Sans Frontières and Save the Children and Oxfam and UNICEF and all of the guys all working out there in the field, all had to use a trucking cartel. So we could get the goods to Addis Ababa, but we couldn't get them up country without using this trucking system. And we thought it was disgusting that this cartel was generating income. So we set about breaking the cartel, but we didn't have the money to buy our own fleet of trucks. We wanted to put in our own trucks where all the agencies would use those trucks, and instead of spending money to hire the trucks, they would put that money back into the system. So it was kind of self-perpetuating, but we didn't have the money to buy the trucks. So Live Aid was kind of born, the idea of doing this huge global concert.
So the benefit concert was kind of a continuation.
It was a continuation. It was a necessity. Yeah,
right.
It was a necessity because we didn't have the wherewithal to do the next step, to make the next step. We had captured people's imaginations. We had got not just the people of the UK on our side, but the people of the world were kind of galvanised into doing something about this because we used a medium they understood, which was music. Yeah. You don't have to understand the lyrics to get the point of the song, to get the emotion of the music. So we had tapped into something, and we didn't want to let this go. So saying that 30 years later, I'm still a Band Aid trustee. The Band Aid Trust is still there. The body of people we put together to oversee the finances,
Incredible.
which come in every year, every time that record is played,
Yeah.
every time it's on a compilation album, every time it's on a greatest Christmas CD ever thing. Money comes in.
Cool. And like today, how does are you still focused on Ethiopia, or is the trust?
We were always in that area. We were always in West Africa. We were always kind of sub-Saharan. We were looking at Niger, Ethiopia, Chad. So we had a demographic that we kept within, because even though the amount of money that was raised seems like a lot, it's a drop in the ocean.
Sure.
And the wider spread you are, the less effective it is. So we concentrated on the territories that we always, concentrated on, and still are.
Totally. Now, were you and Bob Geldof, were you kind of inspired by previous benefit concerts? I remember there was a famous concert to support Bangladesh set up by George Harrison
Yep.
in 1971.
Yep.
Were there kind of inspirations or influences from previous events like that?
Well, you have to remember, I think the first time Bob Geldof and I were ever stood on stage together was at an Amnesty International concert. And we were backing Sting. Figure that. So Amnesty International had done a thing called the Secret Policeman's Ball. And they had kind of established this idea of musicians with a voice doing what they do. It's not difficult for a musician to go and perform a song to add their strength to a record. You're not asking someone to go and climb Kilimanjaro,
Or spend 3 months doing
or become a brain surgeon. It's not difficult to do it. So musicians had found that because of the platform they already had, if they could unite and make one loud voice, it could be heard. And that was proved by the time we'd done this. In fact, the first advice we ever got about setting up the Band-Aid Trust was from George Harrison, because most of the money that was generated for the concert for Bangladesh was eaten up in overheads. So to this day, Band-Aid has never had an office, a secretary, a telephone. We have blagged everything we could.
Keep
'Cause
costs down.
Well, we said to people, buy this record, give us £1, we'll give you a record, and we'll send that £1 to Africa.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done.
Awesome. Amazing. Now, have there been other benefit concerts that have been inspired by Band-Aid? I mean, what do you think the situation with benefit concerts is today? Or
Just-
in the last 30 years?
Yeah, just after after Band-Aid and Live Aid, major charities all saw that as a kind of quick fix, and it wasn't really. People wanted to make records every week. There was another major disaster, and they thought making a record would alleviate a disaster, and it didn't really happen. Very quickly after Band-Aid and Live Aid, the general public suffered from a thing called charity fatigue. They'd been asked too many times to donate to too many different things, and it kind of waned a little bit. Not people's desire to help. I think just the fact that every week it was like, oh, you've got to give to this. It was perceived as, it was like pressure. You have to be part of this now,
Too much
because
on offer, yeah.
and if you're not part of it, the media will know you're not part of it, and it just kind of went a little odd after a while. So, but saying that, right now, would music be the vehicle to generate income? I'm not sure it would. We did a new recording of the Band-Aid record last year, for the Ebola crisis. And simply because we thought it was our duty to do so. We own that song, so we do a different interpretation of that song with all the newer artists that are around, and generate some income. We realised we couldn't compete anywhere near to generate the same kind of income we generated 30 years ago.
Yeah, right.
It's a very different world. So we had to generate a lot of the income from online blogging and pay-per-view and all of the modern elements that go with it. So maybe music isn't the answer for future generations.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Look for different mediums. I'm being told this is the last question. What would be your advice? In Mexico, there's big human rights problems. What would be your advice to a group, who want to set up a benefit concert in Mexico for a certain cause? Like, how would we go about doing it?
Just do it. We were told. I mean, if I could put together all the can'ts and won'ts and shouldn'ts and all the reasons why it would never ever work, if I to put them all in a big room, it would fill the room upstairs, easily.
Yeah.
Because it had never been done before. Because it's never been done doesn't mean it can't be done.
Yeah.
We had a rock and roll gung-ho attitude. The deal is, if the truck breaks down on the way to a gig, get another truck.
Yeah.
Get there and do the show. That's the basic mentality. So we just wouldn't take no for an answer. There are ways and means of doing this stuff. You have to galvanise people. You have to tap into the emotional content that people have. As I said before, one voice standing in a sea of millions can never be heard. You galvanise the people and make that united voice. All of a sudden it's loud. And don't tell me that politicians all around the world weren't affected by Live Aid, because they were young men, young women watching that at the time. So, just do it. Do it. Just make sure that music is the right way to do it.
Awesome.